Bears in the NFC playoff picture, kind of sort of out of it, but that Vikings loss kept Chicago at least breathing here, Ian. That really is neither here nor there. The story really is Justin Fields and the shoulder injury. It's his left shoulder. They're in New York this week to face the Jets. What do we know about Fields?
Yeah, and you could see Fields on the sideline kind of messing with the shoulder. Clearly something was not right. The shoulder, around the neck, kind of the clavicle area. He's having some MRIs and other tests today just to see what damage is there, if any. And I would say going in, the belief is that it's not necessarily something that would keep him off the field, although no one has said that for sure. That's just the early indication before the MRI. Hoping to get some results at some point soon. But of course, you know, Fields runs maybe more than any other quarterback and has done so incredibly successfully, setting himself up to be one of the feel-good stories, maybe even comeback stories of this season. But it does put himself at risk a little bit, and some of that risk is of injury. So we will see what the results of the MRI is on Fields' shoulder. But going in, the hope is that it's not something serious.
Okay, before we get to the Giants and Adoree Jackson, we'll pull the curtain back. Did I introduce Tom? Did I forget to introduce Tom?
I'm here.
I don't think I said your name,
matter.
Tom. I teased earlier that you would be on. I apologize. We now come on 3 people. Tom Pelissero. It's not a slight. It wasn't intentional as well. Tom, hold on. Adoree Jackson. Ian, what do we got?
Adoree Jackson expected to be out 4 to 6 weeks following the MRI. That is an MCL sprain for Adoree Jackson, who also obviously is one of the team's returners. And I would say led to some questions about the wisdom of using one of your best players in as a returner. That said, for Brian Daboll and for the rest of the Giants coaches, use your really good players. Injuries happen, and unfortunately, that is the situation here with Adoree Jackson. But if the Giants stay in it, if they stay as they have been, with a realistic and real chance at the playoffs, then I would expect Adoree Jackson back when that all happens.
All right, Tom.
Meanwhile, Andrew, Ian, I'm Tom. Another blow for the Giants at the wide receiver position. Wan'Dale Robinson out for the season with a torn ACL. He was a player that they had big plans for in that offense. Yesterday was his best game, targeted 13 times, his first 100-yard receiving effort before suffering what is, as Brian Daboll confirmed this morning, a season-ending knee injury for Robinson. So think about this as the Giants were drawing up their wide receiver group back in the offseason. You have Kenny Golladay, who has barely played, not really made any type of impact. You had Kadarius Toney, who really didn't play and then eventually was traded to the Chiefs. You had Darius Slayton, who is still there. Sterling Shepard, though, suffered a season-ending knee injury himself. It's a lot of challenges for Daboll, Mike Kafka, and that offense at a time that the Giants, for the first time in the Daboll era, seem to be, fighting back a little bit after coming off that game yesterday against the Lions.
Yep, in a short week now. By the way, Darius Slayton's going to join us shortly in about 15 minutes. Short week, they go to Dallas. The two teams mentioned, you guys talked about it yesterday morning in the Odell Beckham Jr. story. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe this is the Odell, sweepstakes. Get to that in a second. Ian, real quick. I lost my train of thought. Zach Wilson.
Here,
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, we'll talk about Zach Wilson because, of course, in New York, which is where I am, it's a huge, huge topic. And in New Jersey, where the Jets actually are, Zach Wilson really struggling mightily against the Patriots and, coming into the podium afterward and basically saying that not really taking ownership for the way he played, which is, I know, something that rankled to people in his locker room. Sounds like he's talked to Robert Saleh and immediately feels resourceful about his comments. I do not expect any sort of knee-jerk reaction from the New York Jets regarding Zach Wilson. The Patriots' defense is really good. He's not the first young quarterback to look really bad against the Patriots, so I would be surprised if the Jets made any sort of move now, but I know they're meeting, going over the film, and figuring out what the next step is.
Okay, with Joe Flacco inactive the last couple of weeks and Mike White is the number 2. Now, let's get to Thanksgiving and Odell, Tom, because those were two of the teams we talked about, with Beckham planning on visits potentially to both. What's the latest?
Well, Andrew, as Ian and I reported yesterday, the plan is for Odell Beckham Jr. to take visits after the Thanksgiving holiday, visits to the Cowboys and the Giants, likely at some point next week. So for Odell, who, of course, is still coming back from that torn ACL that he suffered in the Super Bowl, a re-tear of the ACL that he had the previous year, and by all indications, the knee is in much better shape this time around. By the time he takes those visits, he potentially should be able to pass a physical, which is a big benchmark here. It's going to take some time for whatever team that signs him to be able to ramp him up to speed, let him learn the offense and everything else that comes with playing the wide receiver position. But you should be able to add a weapon for these stretch runs. So where does Odell ultimately want to go, Ian? That remains to be seen. There could be other teams that get into the mix as well, but the Cowboys have put on the all-out blitz for weeks now for Odell Beckham Jr. And just as we're on the show here, Stephen Jones on the radio said, quote, "We're probably not going to be talking about that much because it's getting to be pretty strategic right now." So 3 weeks of come on, Odell, but now we're tamping this thing down as we get to crunch time.
You know, I'll ask Darius Slayton coming up in a second. Ian, I'm told, is now on the phone. Tom Pelissero.
So just to be clear, to recap the segment, Ian gone, me, Tom Pelissero, still here.
You
knew we had a lot of time on the clock. We knew we had some time out, so we didn't rush. We just kind of went through what we do every single day at practice and everything like that, and we executed. And I thought, I mean, obviously Travis. I mean, it's Travis. He's the greatest tight end of all time. He makes plays like that win games.
This is what we practice day in, day out. Throughout the offseason, you know, Coach Eric Bieniemy stresses a lot about situational football. And 2 minutes to win the game, down 4, that's a situation that we harp on a lot. And it's just a whole lot of fun, and the emotion to be able to persevere through that, man, it's like a ticking time bomb, man. Once you get in the end zone, man, you just explode.
You know, to close out games against, great offenses, special players, rushing coverage has got to come alive. You gotta rush, and you gotta cover at the end of games, and they made a couple more plays than we did.
Bridget Condon was at that game. It was a movie, Bridget, I think we've seen a few times before. Like, we have a list here from Adrian and Research of all these amazing stats. I don't want to take your thunder here. I don't know, which one's your favorite? Mahomes has never lost an AFC West road game. How about that one?
But you could take whatever one you want. But, Andrew, Patrick Mahomes last night continued to show us why he is one of the best at what he does. He only needed 1 minute and 46 seconds. He goes 75 yards, 6 plays, finds his favorite target, Travis Kelce, and he did it with a smile on his face. Every single person in SoFi Stadium, when he had the ball back in his hands less than 2 minutes to go, knew what was going to happen. He has so much poise, so much confidence, and Patrick Mahomes, so much was talked about what he can do this season with the Chiefs without Tyreek Hill. Well, last night, it was no McCole Hardman. It was no Kadarius Toney goes down early in the game. No Juju Smith-Schuster. So he has guys like rookie Sky Moore, Justin Watson, who have career bests in receiving yards last night. He's making it happen. And Andy Reid said after the game, look, we've been down with 13 seconds left to play. So 1 minute and 46, I kind of felt like it was too much time for Patrick Mahomes. And like you were saying, the numbers are crazy. He's played in 27 games against AFC West opponents. He's only lost 3 of those games. He continues to show week in and week out, it does not matter who's on the field with him. He will find a way to get it done.
And the crazy stat as well from our friends at NFL Research, the great research department upstairs on the 2nd floor. Patrick Mahomes, since the merger, so since 1970, is the only quarterback ever to have a winning record when his team is trailing at the half. Ever.
13-7.
Yeah, which is pretty good. Chargers, look, all the injuries, certainly that is part of the story here, Bridget, but they are 5-5 now. They get a couple of road games. They're in the playoff picture, certainly, but that didn't help last night.
It came down to the Chargers' best against the Chiefs' best. Late in the game, it was Derwin James, Travis Kelce, and once again, the Chargers are just a little bit too short in this one. And Derwin James said after the game, close is not good enough. So how close is this Chargers team? Well, of the 5 games that they've lost this season, only one of those games they've lost by 6 or more points. So they are right there. Once again, had a chance late in this game against a really, really good Chiefs team. And Drew Tranquill said after the game, why not us? We are so close. We're getting players healthy. We saw it early in this game when Mike Williams and Keenan Allen were both out there on the field. Justin Herbert slinging a 50-yard pass. He had a 46-yard pass. He looked like that old Justin Herbert. And when they have those receivers out there on the field, we saw that run game start to go, right? When you have guys, it's pretty good. If you have guys that are threats as receivers to this defense, you can find a way to run the ball. So as this Chargers team continues to get healthy, the mindset really in that locker room last night was there's still hope for this team. And one other thing that I want to add, Joey Bosa, big part of this team. Friday will be 8 weeks since he had that surgery, and he was expected to miss 8 to 10 weeks. So it seems like if they can just hang on, and they're still 5-5, which is crazy to think about despite everything they've been through, if they can just hang on a little bit longer, they're right there. So close.
With a trip to Arizona with the Cardinals on a short week. Coming up here, week number 12. Thank you, Bridget Condon, there last night as the Chiefs beat the Chargers in primetime. And Kansas City, as it stands now, still very much atop of the AFC at 8-2. And you see the Chargers there in the